An article which I believe appeared in a newspaper asked why, since you are, or it would seem that you are in effect the mayor of Chicago, you've not simply been appointed to that position.
Well, I'll tell you, it's touching. Like a lot of things in life, we laugh because it's funny and we laugh because it's true. Some people say, reformers here say, put that man in jail. What does he think he is doing? What I hope I'm doing, and here's where your English paper's got a point, is I'm responding to the will of the people. People are going to drink. You know that, I know that, we all know that, and all I do is act on that. And all this talk of bootlegging. What is bootlegging? On the boat, it's bootlegging. On Lakeshore Drive, it's hospitality. I'm a businessman.
And what of your reputation that you control your business through violence? That those that don't purchase your products are dealt with violently?
It's all right. I grew up in a tough neighborhood. And we used to say you can get further with a kind word and a gun than you can with just a kind word. And in that neighborhood, it might have been true. And sometimes a reputation follows you. There is violence in Chicago, of course, but not by me and not by anybody I employ, and I'll tell you why, because it's not good business.
Chicago, Illinois, a booming city and a second home to America's filmmakers. But earlier this century, Chicago was synonymous with gang warfare and organized crime on a scale unprecedented in American history. Now the city is a home base to a movie about those lawless times. Directed by Brian De Palma and written by the award-winning playwright David Mamet, it stars Robert De Niro as Al Capone and Kevin Costner as Elliot Ness, who, at the instigation of President Herbert Hoover, fought the widespread corruption among both the police force and the civic authorities to return law to the violent streets of Chicago.
He's brought to Chicago because to clean up the town, to assist the government of the city of Chicago in stopping corruption, which is, I think, historically also very accurate, because Hoover was quite embarrassed by Al Capone. And people would come to Hoover and say, how can you allow such, I'm talking about Herbert Hoover, such terrible violence and flaunting of the federal laws in the city of Chicago. And so Hoover conceived a certain vendetta against Capone.
It was that vendetta that inspired the series of classic gangster movies of the 30s and led to the famous television series about Elliot Ness and his men, the Untouchables.
Tonight's episode, The Waxy Gordon Story. Starring Robert Stack as Elliot Ness. Co-starring Frank DeCova. With special guest star Nehemiah Persoff. And narrated by Walter Winchell.
Well, Waxy, we'd like to see him.
He's busy.
So are we.
What's the matter?
It's the law.
I'll be right there. Hey, Flo, don't take all night. I want to catch the last show at the Hotsy Totsy. Oh, I know you. You're Elliot Ness, right? I know all about you.
What do you know about Frankie Dunn?
How must I know something?
Don't you read the newspapers?
Sure. Variety.
Frankie Dunn was killed last night.
What's that got to do with me?
He's in your line of business.
My line of business?
Beer.
Oh, come on, boys, will you? I got nothing to do with beer or any of the other rackets. I gamble, play the horses a little, back a few shows,
And commit murder.
That's nice, that's nice. And what do I do for an encore?
Robert Stack was television's Elliot Ness. In the new film, Kevin Costner plays the role.
Chicago was on the map. I mean, Chicago was as international as Paris. I mean, Chicago was a roaring city. I mean, it was filled with crime and everything else, but it was, if you had dough, you could have fun here, and that was the problem.
The cops were on the side of the crooks, and the various criminal elements functioned hand in hand with the police in the 30s. Big Bill Thompson was the mayor of Chicago for much of that period, was Capone's boy.
People are pretty, they had great intrigue with the Godfather issues. There is something fascinating about the evil at work. I think it has less attraction or intrigue for an audience if it's just a corporation that's against some individual or something, and then it becomes kind of faceless. But when it's somebody, as a person like, say, a Dutchy Schultz or a Al Capone or somebody like that, then they can actually see the person, witness what he does and what he doesn't do, and he gets away with a lot of things that some people would rather like to do, probably, and I think more in America than any other country in the world, where they're much more recognizing of a kind of stand-up guy, as they say.
There was, you know, a lot of money being thrown around, and it was very easy to buy people. It was much easier to buy someone than to go ahead and, you know, comply. We have several large operations in the work. We're rather busy, Alderman, so what can I do for you?
I came up to congratulate you on a job well done. Share your good fortune on such a lovely day.
What's that? What is that?
Mr. Ness, you're an educated man. Let me pay you the compliment of being blunt. There is a large and popular business which you are causing dismay. Why don't you just cross the street and let things take their course?
Come in here, please. In Roman times, when a fellow was convicted of trying to bribe a public official, they would cut off his nose and sew him in a bag with a wild animal and throw that bag in the river. You tell your master that we must agree to disagree.
You're making a mistake.
Yeah, well, I've made them before. I'm beginning to enjoy them.
You fellas are untouchable. Is that the thing?
Ness's specific task was to enforce a widely unpopular law prohibiting the sale and consumption of alcohol. Religious and temperance enthusiasts had finally won their fight for an era of clear thinking and clean living, and for more than 10 years, America was to become, in theory at least, a dry country.
Federal officer, you're under arrest for violations of the Volstead Act.
But when Congress introduced the Volstead Act of Prohibition at midnight on January the 17th, 1920, it not only underestimated seriously the thirst for alcohol, but also gave unbridled powers to the men who catered for those now illegal appetites. Paramount among those men was Alphonse Capone.
I, for some reason, in the course of my life, have known a few people who were criminals, and I found all of them charming. I mean, there are a lot of people, very, very powerful people in any business, whether that's the movie business or the investment banking business or the government, for that matter. Very, very powerful people who are very, very charming, who also happen to be thugs. There is something about power itself which is charming, which is very, very attractive, and something about the possession of power which tends to make people patronizing, egomaniacal, and also relaxed. When you put those three things together, sometimes what you get is charm, which is what I understand that Al Capone possessed.
I think we're all taught to judge people how they are with us. If Al Capone gave you money, that's the way you're going to think about him. But if Al Capone also killed your kid brother or someone else in the midst of a shootout or something, you're going to have a very much a different opinion.
Capone was sentenced to 11 years imprisonment in October 1931, ironically for income tax evasion. And by then, Hollywood's fascination with the gangster era was well underway.
The view of gangsters back then was very romantic and very romanticized, and probably what we're working against here. Of course, there's much more realism in films now. You didn't really see the blood flying around, and it wasn't filmed in color. They were shot black and white, and very different kind of filmmaking than is being done now.
I think that in many instances they were simplistic, oversimplistic. You know, the black hats and the white hats, the goodies and the baddies, and at the end, and the baddies were put away, and that was it. But I think that because of the modern audience, because of the introduction of Freud and whatever else, they were interested in character and where they go and relationships and all the rest of it, so that the balance in film changes. And what was acceptable 10 years ago is not acceptable today. 20 years ago, not acceptable at all.
I think people like speed, and they like danger, and they like adventure. A lot of things that maybe their life aren't. And it's from a peripheral look, it's always an exciting life. And the gangster life certainly involved money, and it involved women, and it involved gambling, and it involved you know, a good time, a temporary good time. You never see all the guys that bet all the money and their families went without, you know, betting on horses and the drunks and this stuff. But the gangster life was Hollywood. You know, it was Hollywood in the Midwest.
In The Untouchables, Al Capone is played by Robert De Niro. The actor's fastidious attention to detail is legendary, and to increase his physical resemblance to the gangster, he went back to the high-calorie diet devised to help him play the aging Jake LaMotta in Raging Bull.
Bob is the quintessential Al Capone. I mean, he's the greatest character actor of his generation, and he just doesn't have any peers, and so, as far as I'm concerned, and it has been an ordeal, but I really think that after this, there won't be a reason to ever do Al Capone, you know. I think Bobby's going to nail it.
Robert De Niro prepared for Capone first by eating. He had to put on about 25 pounds, but it rounded his face out. And he went to Italy and worked with some people he'd worked with before in order to pull his hairline back. So he get that very round moon face that Capone has. And then he had to put on the 2 scars that Capone has on the side of his face. This makeup job took about 3 hours to do in the morning. And it was fabulous. De Niro is, of course, one of the greatest actors in America today. And he liked the material, and that was very flattering to us. He liked the inanimate language. He liked this new conception of Al Capone instead of making him kind of a street thug. He's sort of a man of words, a man that likes to talk to the press, a man that is very eloquent. And the press finds very colorful.
What about that court date?
I'm going to tell you something. Somebody messes with me, I'm going to mess with him. Somebody steals from me, I'm going to say you stole, not talk to him for spitting on the sidewalk. You understand? Now, I have done nothing to hurt these people, but they're angered at me, so what do? Doctor up some income tax, for which they got no case. To annoy me, to speak to me like men, no. To harass a peaceful man. I pray to God that if I ever had a grievance, I would have just a little more self-respect.
Mr. Capone!
I'll tell you one more thing. You got an all-out prize fight, you wait till the fight's over, one guy's left standing, and that's how you know who won.
And what I didn't know before I started this picture was that Capone was very young when all this was happening. He was in his 20s. He was like 24 when he took over Chicago. And by the time they caught him, he was 31. So he was a very young man, and that's kind of surprising. You think of the power that he wielded.
What makes it so difficult to get Capone in the movie and in life was that Capone was the ruler of the city. And just like any people who are corrupt and on the take in high places, there's so many ranks of intermediaries between the actual crime and themselves, it's hard to pin anything on them. The same thing as Watergate, the same thing as the arms thing. There's always somebody you can get to take the fall for you.
If you own the town and you own the police and you give the town what it wants, and everybody knows that if they don't go along with him, then they have to be against him. And if you're not with him and you're against him, then he's going to deal with you. And so it's very, very clearly established at the beginning of the film just what you're dealing with in terms of Capone.
He was a very colorful character. Everybody in Chicago loved him. He was bringing in liquor, and they wanted to drink that liquor. They did not like the Volstead Act, and consequently they felt that he was giving them something that they wanted, and this law was, in fact, ridiculous. The only problem was when you're dealing with illegal substances, a lot of innocent people get killed in the process.
The Untouchables, in reality, were the guys who came from Washington to try to clean up Chicago. I think there were 10 of them ultimately who got that name. For dramatic purposes, we've condensed them into 4.
The 4 Untouchables are made up of Elliot Ness, who's basically a young, idealistic Treasury agent, who sort of reminds me of a little like Jimmy Stewart in Mr. Deeds Goes to Town. He believes in American virtues, American tradition, and he's basically an innocent in a very corrupt world. Then there's the sort of war-weary Irish cop played by Sean Connery, who's I always thought the image of an honest cop in a corrupt town would be he'd be at the bottom of the rung. He'd be the one that would never get a good job, would be on a beat even though he's, in his 60s. He'd never be advanced, he'd never go anywhere because the whole system's corrupt.
Hey, wait a minute. What the hell kind of police you have in this goddamn city, huh? What do they teach you? You just turned your back on an armed man.
You're a Treasury officer.
Yeah, how do you know that? I just told you I was.
Who would claim to be that who was not?
The third untouchable is an accountant who basically finds the way to get Al Capone by showing that he hasn't paid his taxes and get him on income tax evasion. And that character is played by Charlie Martin Smith, and he has a very kind of accountant's view of this world, like this is the way to get him, show that he hasn't paid his taxes, make the connection, and then nail him in court. And the final untouchable, played by Andy Garcia, is the one Italian of the group. And I thought this would be a good idea because you didn't want to make everybody think that all Italians are corrupt and all Italians are gangsters. There were honest Italians too, and they were as disturbed by Al Capone as any hard-working Italian of the period.
Now then, why do you want to join the force?
Protect the property and citizens.
Oh, please. Don't waste my time with that bullshit. Where are you from, Stone?
The South Side.
Stone? That's your name? George Stone? What's your real name?
That is my real name.
What was it before you changed it?
Giuseppe Bentley.
Jeez, I knew it. That's all we need, A thieving wop in the team.
Is that you said?
I said that you're a lying member of a no-good race. Couldn't get it out of
Well, he's a kid who's, basically grows up on the same side of the street as Capone did, and all his guys. So, but he goes on the other direction and decides to be a cop and kind of wants to clean that image of the mobster in the Italian heritage. And like a lot of minorities feel that way, And so he's trying to show that there is another side to it, and not everyone on the street, not everybody from the South Side of Chicago is necessarily on the take. I mean, Stone doesn't like people on the take. He has no stomach for that.
Oh, I like him.
Yeah, I like him too.
You just joined the Treasury Department, son.
I thought it was a very clever concept to take the old cop who was not too happy with the status quo in Chicago, which is the part that I play, Malone, and use him as this kind of old dog that teaches a new dog the tricks on how to deal with the situation in the Chicago way.
Well, it's one of those classic relationships where you have experience. I think we all would like to maybe go through life with kind of a figure that's standing over us, be able to keep us from mistakes. And Sean represents that, and with all the charm that Sean brings to bear in a movie, especially this one. I mean, I really, going out on a limb, I think Sean will get an award as a supporting actor. I think this is Sean's year.
You want to get Capone? Here's how you get him. He pulls a knife, you pull a gun. He sends one of yours to the hospital, you send one of his to the morgue. That's the Chicago way. And that's how you get Capone. Now, do you want to do that? Are you ready to do that? I'm making you a deal. Do you want this deal?
I have sworn to put this man away with any and all legal means at my disposal, and I will do so.
Well, the Lord hates a coward. Do you know what a blood oath is, Mr. Ness?
Yes.
Good, because you just took one.
Some locations needed extensive work to make them fit into the period setting. Chicago's Roosevelt University doubled up as the Lexington Hotel, where Capone maintained a permanent suite, and the expense of filming away from Hollywood seemed worthwhile to nearly everyone.
Well, it always adds to shoot on the live location because it's good for the actors, because they feel they're in a real location and they get some kind of sense of the people they're playing and the places they're playing at. When you're dealing with sound stages and dealing with Los Angeles, that gives them one other thing they have to sort of imagine and create for themselves. So consequently, it is always very good to bring characters to the real places, plus they also spend a lot of time talking to the people that are actually involved in this period.
I tell you, the people of Chicago have been really nice to us. I mean, they're nice people, you know. We always get a good table at restaurants and stuff like that. And they've been really kind. It's been a fine 3.5 months. I can't wait to leave, but it's been a fine 3.5 months, you know. And I do think that the spirit of Al Capone and the fact that it was here helped being in Chicago, definitely. And I'm glad we did it all here. But I'm just saying that I think if we replanned the picture, I think we would have, I hate to be crass, but we would have saved money had we done it partially in LA.
You can't understand what Chicago was like unless you really go to Chicago. And I think this company's done a real good job of capturing the feel of what Chicago was like then. We've got scenes where the 4 guys walk across the street and you'd swear you were back in 1930s.
Here we are.
What are we doing here?
Liquor raid.
Here?
Mr. Ness, everybody knows where the booze is. The problem isn't finding it. The problem is who wants to cross Capone. Let's go.
The main location away from Chicago was in Montana, doubling up as the US-Canadian border in one of the film's major action sequences.
You have the full automatic real McCoys. We're looking at about 25. We have about 100 of the replicas. We have about 125 operating live shotguns. We have about 200 handguns and enough ammo to start a small war.
Girls are hot.
Boom, it looks like a
No. So I know you got to get a turn in it, sure.
Boom, you'll see it. I'll drape to here and just go.
Take it out a half a block. Just push it from the back.
How's that?
That's good.
All right, hold it there.
We'll do that to your man.
Okay, good.
No, that's fake. This is all the real stuff. We'll go and get that one there.
The battle starts. There's booze that's being coming across the border, and the exchange is being made. And at the point of exchange, we initiate an attack. However, we got a real problem because the Canadians who have agreed to start it after us start it before us. So they actually get the ball started a lot earlier, which causes a lot of craziness. The next thing you know, we find Untouchables racing across this field, and Sean and I break off to the left, and we're going to stop a car that's getting away. And so Sean and I dismount, we run into the middle of the road, and the car comes hurtling toward us, and we completely open up, and I empty my shotgun on it. Sean gets to do the great movie thing of emptying his machine gun. I mean, it's really why you do the movies, to get to shoot the bad guys and stuff.
What we were hoping to do is try to really capture a great moment in American history. Elliot Ness, Al Capone, Prohibition, machine guns, innocent people dying. And it was a very exciting moment, and we wanted to take what, I don't know, this is a word that Mamet may like. We wanted to take the high road.
Well, I like to try to find a set piece to, practice my visual craft in any movie that I do. Sometimes in movies that I write, I create set pieces and then make movies around them.
He took some of these action sequences that Mamet just indicated, like, A shoots B, B shoots C, and Brian just takes your breath away. I mean, some people won't be able to watch them.
I have forsworn myself. I have broken every law I swore to defend. I have become what I beheld, and I am content that I have done right.
You got nothing, nothing. And if you were a man, you would have done it now.
Never stop